Welcome again to this space of testimonies that connects us with the heart. I am Valeria Marin. I'm part of the psychologists at INSER. We're going to be with Rosana and Eduardo today. How are you?
Very good, Valen. How are you?
I'm very good. I'm very happy to have you here today and being able to have the honor of listening to you, and all the people who are watching this can learn from your experience. We're very grateful for this space that allow us to reach many couples who are going through who have the same dream. It was a long process for us, very tough, but the reward is very beautiful. So let's begin. Please share with us your treatment, what type of treatment, how long it took, what did you go through, so people can start to know you. Well, we had a treatment of 3 years. In those 3 years, we went through 4 inseminations, 6 transfers, 6 attempts, where we had 11 embryos implanted, 2 surgeries, my uterus, 1 more test. We also went through 6 applications of enriched plasma. All that along those 3 years. During 3 years. What emotions did you go through? Because it was a very long path, very long journey.
Right, the truth is, in this path, we didn't have the experience and we didn't quite know how long it could be, how long it could take. And when we started, we thought it was a short path. We thought it was just a part of it would be a treatment or an insemination, and that would be it, and it would all be quick. And we realized as time passed that we had 1 attempt and a second attempt, and time passed, but we kept that same hope and the same enthusiasm and same energy, which obviously, as when we didn't get a positive result, then we when we feel like there's an immediate objective and it doesn't work out, you might feel some disillusion or frustration.
Of course.
But in my case, I always made my wife see the positive side, because I always would highlight the positive in the process. Every time as we made progress on something, I always told her, look, we're improving on this, we've overcome this, we're reaching something different, we're achieving something, and I always tried to find the positive side of everything that happened. And thank God.
I like your testimony a lot, because I feel that it can leave a message of a lot of positivity. And being able to see the other side of this process, as Rosana said, it was a long journey of inseminations, transfers, negatives, negative after negative, and how in the middle of that, and we know those are difficult moments, what we have is this: in spite of the frustration, you have the possibility to see it like that. I would like to make emphasis in that. How did you handle the negatives, and how did you handle Eduardo? And how do you handle that and try to be positive and be there for Rosana?
Well, in this process, I think that there's something to clarify, which is that often people think that the person who carries the most weight or feels most let down can be the woman in this case. I think it's good for people to know that we as men also suffer in that process. In my case, or in our case, I thank God because we always complement each other very well. We always support one another, and when I need support, she's always there, and when she needs support, she feels that she can count on me, and I try to have the best energy. And as I had said, I always try to highlight the positive. Although the path was long, we see that we move forward, and we have to keep the same emotional state and be positive.
That's something very admirable. Really, well, we have 10 negative betas and 1 positive in the whole process. To say that there wasn't a moment of sadness, a moment of depression, but we were always set a limit to be on those days, because it's valid. It's valid to feel it the way you feel it. But we were always looking for the way as a couple to go out for dinner, to do other things that take the attention away from that negative. And next week you have an appointment where you sit with the doctor and listen to him. This is the reality. Now we're going to do this. And we simply gave ourselves 1 or 2 days of that negative feeling, and we carried on. Because it wasn't useful to just focus on the bad and to quit. 2 or 3 days to feel the negative, and then just shake it and keep going. It's very beautiful because yes,
in our process, when we had a negative beta, I remember my wife would say, I want to disconnect. Let's continue living. Let's travel, or let's clear our minds. And we would take that pause or find some way to relieve the stress before starting again.
Yeah. As I was saying, that I find it very interesting, because I think that this is what a lot of couples need to listen. How do you find alternative ways to manage that moment of pain? And what I perceive in you, and correct me if I'm wrong, you have your mindset and that you were
completely
going to make it. Because otherwise, it's harder to carry on, to say, let's keep going, shake it 2 or 3 days, the necessary. If we don't have that certainty in our hearts that we're going to make it, it's harder to make it. What do you think? Yes, absolutely. It's a process that goes, it's very tied with faith and with the attitude you have to face the situation. We know we began a process, but we didn't know when it was going to end. The dream that everyone has is to be pregnant the next month. But usually, maybe we don't listen what we want to listen, and something comes up. One step back. You have to pause. And being aware that you know how do you begin, but you don't know when you're going to finish. Don't focus so much on the negative. That lesson that my husband taught me In the beginning, it was very hard for me, especially the first transfer. It was really hard on me. And from there, he made me see that each transfer, each in vitro, mattered. No matter if we didn't get the result that we wanted, you want to see a positive result. But I'm very thankful to him that helped me see that side. That moment, that energy that allowed us to keep the faith and pray to God. We were praying as a family. And it was a very intimate space where we could have that connection to God, to ask Him from the bottom of our hearts. Of course, your desire is what sustains this process. When you say that even if it was a no, you moved forward somehow, can you share? What were those steps ahead? A lot of couples ask, and I try to do something similar to what you do. How to assess the process, something important happened, and they ask me, Valeria, how are we moving forward? We want the positive, and that's it. And maybe that's the question that many people ask themselves. How do you move forward? Well, in our experience, the first diagnosis, when the first transfer was done, we had a very high expectation. I had a lot of follicles, very high, but in the end, there was only one left, the one that was transferred. And the embryologists, they realized that the quality of my embryos was not the best. So I didn't expect that result, honestly. After seeing so many embryos, we didn't expect it. So it was really hard on me. The next cycle, we had another induction to the ovulation. In the second one, we went from 1 to 4. So 2 were transferred and we froze 2. It didn't happen. It was negative again. And we started a third cycle where there were not only 4 but 6. And you tell yourself, if that's the diagnosis, what we did actually worked. We went from having 1 to 6.
And the quality of the embryo, it was embryos of 5 days. When we were pregnant the first time, it was a single embryo that lasted 3 days. By the third cycle, we had 6 embryos for day 5. And those were the things that I made my wife see, that they were positive, that we were advancing in the process. And so I would hold on to these things and try to show the positive side of that progress.
In the end, I started to have a thin endometrium, and the diagnosis, the focus of attention, was not the quality of the embryos, but my endometrium, my thin endometrium, and I couldn't get pregnant. And that's why we did a patera.
That's where we see what we call the window for implantation. Well, that has to be studied first.
Before the transfer. We also made the decision, because my endometrium was not responding, the doctor proposed the enriched plasma. I had tried all the medication, all the pills, and the enriched plasma, that was the last thing that they did in the last 2 transfers. I made it.
It was a small implantation. I think it wasn't implanted for a long time, but at that moment, it makes my wife immediately to, I guess, show a change in hormones. And the result, when they do the test, we did see that there was a small implantation. Maybe it didn't continue. But that was the other positive thing that I saw in the process, that maybe for the first time it was implanted. Maybe it didn't continue. That maybe it didn't develop, but there was a small implantation. So that's one of the positive things that I took out of each cycle or each transfer.
I'm so happy to hear you, because it's to celebrate each little achievement, and I try to show, not only me, but from the psychology team, we try to show how this process is not only a path and an objective, but there are moments and teachings and little achievements, and your story shows this very clearly. How can we celebrate every step ahead? And if a lot of people didn't have this positivism, they just go to the other side and tell themselves that they're not making it. It's so beautiful to being able to transmit this message of being able to celebrate the little achievements that you have in your path until the great objective is achieved. Well, now that I'm talking about this great expectation, let's talk about June 11th. After celebrating so many little achievements, the beta positive came back. How was it? That pregnancy. Please share all that joy of that moment. Well, I think that the longest 15 days of our lives, when you run the test in the morning, you wait for that call from the doctor bringing good news. It was a happiness that was one of a kind. We were crying out of joy. We always, when they tell you about this result, positive or negative, there are words of support. Those words were different. We were waiting for this, yes, you're pregnant. We came down to our knees and we said, thank you, God, for this beautiful gift. In spite of the difficulties of the journey, we were crying, not because of sadness, but because we were happy that it was a yes. God has its times, and we don't understand very often. We were one of the first couples that arrived at INSER Cartagena, and we also experienced other couples' happiness that made it very fast. So there's a timing for everything. Let's talk about the pandemic, When they say in the middle of this pandemic, we were convinced that it was not possible to make it this year. But we started the process again with all the precautions, and we're very grateful to God to to lead us to INSER. For Juan, for the doctor, for the wonderful team that was always there watching over us. So we basically opened INSER, and until this year we've been there for 2 years. From all that process and that quality that is beyond comparison, and you need that quality and you need those words. And right now we're enjoying this time.
My wife says something which, when we were in the process, in INSER, there were couples who arrived and maybe they had a positive beta, they had a pregnancy faster than we did. And the truth is, in our case, I got very happy because I knew, or you share that hope, and we made friends in the process. And really, each of us has our time. God knows when He will give us that gift. And for myself, I would say that all this process we're going through, and if we serve as a testimony for many couples who are going through the same thing, then to me that's a good compensation.
And you are doing it.
And I think what we're doing now, of sharing our experience with others, and after going through what we went through, it's very beautiful to me. To show people, to show other couples that it can be done, that it might not happen as quickly as we want, that we have to be joyful for the goals of our friends and partners, because we know, those of us who have that same hope, the desire to be parents and have our babies, and that joy when there's a positive result for someone, and that's for everyone. And when it's negative, the human warmth of the entire team when we arrived there, where we all became very united. We knew one another, and that awaited day when you see the positive beta. Just as we got happy, I'm very sure that they also and happy. What they showed us, they showed us that they were sharing that happiness with us.
It is a celebration, a joint celebration. You're happy and we jump out of joy when we get those pregnancies, because it's the reason for us to do what we do. And it's life itself that opens itself for those who persevere. When you have these paths, these journeys that have been so hard, the happiness is incomparable. What message would you give men who are together with their wives? What would you say to them?
What would I tell the men? That although we are men, that we also feel, and that it's good to show what we feel, express it to our partners, and not stay silent. Second, that we have to support them a lot, physically, almost the entire process that happens for the women. They might have to take medications or injections. In my case, I supported my wife a lot in terms of the medications and the injections, although she was a bit fearsome or afraid of the injections. But this brings couples together. And I would always tell my wife, when we started this process as a couple, and And as a man, I felt closer to my wife. I felt that we became more united as a couple. And so the recommendation that I would give men is to first express everything you feel.
Wonderful.
And whether it's sadness or happiness, and that you support your partner, and that sometimes you can be that shoulder where she needs to rest, to cry or laugh, or that whatever she needs, that you're always there and support her in whatever she needs.
I knew that I had to ask you, and it occurred to me while I was listening to you. I was saying, of course, men are very important in this process. And sometimes they feel away, as if it was only the woman's terrain. But your words have been really precise and valuable for all those men who might be listening to us. Rosana, and you, what would you say to the women and to the people who are living and feeling this treatment, and those no's, and so many no's, and then the beautiful yes? First, to believe from the bottom of your heart, more than this desire of having a children, desiring it from the bottom of your heart. Don't surrender, don't give up. The physical pain is also there, because the amount of medication and injections, you cannot even imagine. And to put up a better attitude, to keep going in the process, because oftentimes you think you have reached the maximum of your capacity, and no, that same love and that same desire makes the pain more bearable. To make it more bearable, yes. Also, I recommend to go to psychology, to your psychologist, to the activities, to the meetings. Sorry. Because maybe you underestimate, because you think that you have the control, or that you already know, because it's a simple activity. But those activities can pull the things from deep that you don't think you're going to express. But those activities help you express that suffering, that pain. For a negative, for example, my recommendation is to assist, to go to those activities. You can see all the different cases. Everyone expresses their pain in their own way. And it's not only to stand up and say what you're feeling. Maybe we're shy because we don't know those people, but they lead you to express in a paper what ultimately brings us together is the desire to have a child. Please take advantage of that space. It was very useful for us. Also, to knowing better ourselves through a test. The first time we got the test, I realized how anxious I was. That I was living more the future than my present. And we're in this process, but you don't have to stop living your life, because we're here for whatever it comes. My cell phone was all photos of babies. The way I dressed had changed, because I was always expecting the transfer, so I was expecting my clothes to change too. I was getting ahead of myself, going into a future I didn't have. And it was basically 3 years. When I got this test, I realized that I was very anxious. And then you realize that you can make a stop. It made me stop and do the treatment, but at the same time live my life, work normally, in spite of everything that was going on. The activity in social media, we live all that in that time. We manifested all that in photos, but we were living it. We were living our present as well. There's just gratitude left for you, because I think your words are very honest and precise. You have taught us a very important lesson. All those couples and single women that can listen to this testimony can bring as resources. I like it because those are tools, resources built from your own process, from the male side, from the female side, but from the whole of it, from the couple, and that optimism that is admirable and wonderful. Thank you very much. I have nothing else to add, because with those final points, you have said everything that it's needed to be said. Express ourselves, allow ourselves to have other spaces where we can understand better each other and understand things about life. And that is a very valuable invitation. This is a process where the voice of others, professionals, family, friends, is vital. So I'm very happy. Rosana, Eduardo, thank you very much for this space. And I hope everyone enjoys it as much as I did. Well, thank you very much for this invitation. And well, may your pregnancy be very, very happy. So this process ends with a beautiful baby.
Yes, let's hope these 2 months pass by quickly.
Thank you very much for the invitation and your words. Thank you so much for everything.
Okay, goodbye.